that one. Are we ready to go? People in the back? Tough day, man. This is what happens. People don't know how to operate a camera. All right. Hopefully, those of you who are back. Those of you who are here for the first time are here for the first time. Just a recap, quick recap. We're in the midst, near the end really, of a class titled The Missing Link. And what we're trying to do in this class is a little bit different from what we've done in the past. It's basically to give us a synopsis of the Old Testament. So when it comes to the Old Testament, there's a lot of things that we just can't seem to grasp because it moves really, really fast. And we might have individual ideas of characters that exist in the Bible, such as Moses, Abraham, Isaac, David, Samuel. But how do they all come together as one intricate story as the Old Testament is? It tells us one history, one story, right? It's not like individual things. So the idea for this class is to get these like stories that hopefully you guys are already aware of and really kind of bring it together as one standalone story of the Old Testament. Now, if we really had to reduce the Old Testament to just one phrase, it would be the Old Testament is how you were lost, and the New Testament is how you were found. The Old Testament is how you were sick, the New Testament is how you were cured, exactly. So you guys see how it works. And our cure is, of course, in our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ. So now, we know in the Old Testament, we started out, of course, with the story of Adam and Eve. We see how they ate the forbidden fruit, and that's how they got sick. They got a stomach ache, right? Like they were eating something that didn't belong to them, and they got sick. That's what happened. That's the Old Testament. And from the rest of the story, it's about how our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ, says, yeah, you ate something bad, but don't worry. I got a medicine that will fix your boo-boo. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So this is exactly what the Old Testament is. Now, in order to save mankind, God is trying to preserve the good seed that we've been talking about. And that good seed is, of course, our Virgin Mary, from whom he is born. And our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ, takes natural flesh and natural soul from the Virgin Mary, and then we have our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ. So this was going to happen in the New Testament. The Old Testament is the journey of getting there. How do we get to our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ? Like I said, it begins with Adam and Eve. They're kicked out. God makes them a promise that says, I'm going to preserve the seed for this generation. Now, the problem is this nation called Israel, who God has selected, is not really following the directions of God. Like, they're not following what he's saying. God is saying, I'm trying to protect you. Stay with me and all is good. But instead of listening to God, they do their own thing. They walk away, right? And then more recently, we've seen that this nation that God has been with, this great nation that went around the world and defeated all their enemies and all this stuff, because of internal conflict they're having, what happened to the kingdom? What happened to the kingdom? The people that were here like the past 2 weeks. It was split into two, between West and East. North and South. That's it. This is not a rap contest. So the North and the South, right? The North and the South. How many tribes are there in Israel? 12 tribes. How many are left in the North?
2.
So close. So close. How many are left in the North?
10.
Who said 10? Be careful. So the North has 10 kingdoms. The South has 2. Really 1.5. The Benjamin tribe is like, they're very small. They were like a small circle. So like the main tribe is South, but don't be fooled. Even though the nation of Israel is divided into 2, 10 tribes in the North and only 2 tribes in the South, who's dominant? The South, because the tribe of Judah is on fire. God has selected them. God has chosen them. And even though they're less in terms of like number of tribes, they're the ones that God has chosen, and they're good ones. Now, we said in the North, you have 2 types of kings that emerge in the North. You have some of them are bad kings, but the majority are really bad kings, right? So that's the options that you have in the north. You have some that are bad, but the majority are really bad, right? And because the north is just corrupt and they're doing, we're not saying like, oh, they're sinning, oh no, like we're talking about they're doing idol worship. And when we're saying they're doing idol worship, they're doing like very horrific things like child sacrifices. These are guys who are just out of it. They're out of it. Because of this, God sends multiple prophets, and this is when you get to the story of Elsa and who else am I forgetting? Elijah and Isaiah and all of these kings that come into power are coming in to remind the kings, hey guys, wake up, what you're doing is not good. What you're doing is against God. This nation is going to be destroyed because of your wicked actions. And surely enough, last week we were talking about the Assyrian Empire comes, they come into the north and they completely destroy the northern kingdom. So as we know it, 10 out of the 12 kingdoms or tribes are completely destroyed. The north is never brought together. The people are taken as captives and they're made slaves, and the north is completely destroyed. The Assyrians come into the north, they start to marry with the northern Israelites, and they have kids of their own, and then this results in the fact that they even forgot how to worship. Even those who are like, okay, let's worship like Moses, they forgot how to, right? Because like they've just been so corrupt and the nation is destroyed. This is where we left off last week. In terms of the south, it's a little different. The majority are bad, but some are the south. The south. There's some good ones. There's some good ones that try to do good. They close idol worships and they reinstitute the worship of Moses, right? They reinstitute the worship of God. This is happening in the south. So this is a good thing. And then in the midst of that, we have, of course, Hezekiah. He's one of the good kings. He's also the king who is in power when the north is being destroyed. He's in the south and he's looking at it like, oh my goodness, like this is bad, right? So then he gets his stuff together and then he begins to worship God and he begins to go towards God and starts doing good things. And keep in mind, if you read the book of Isaiah, this is when Hezekiah and Isaiah are talking to each other. And Isaiah is a good like confidant, and he's the one who's like telling him, hey, like remember what happened to the north, like make sure the same thing doesn't happen to us. And he's warning him. He's a smart guy, so he knows Assyrian Empire at the time, they're very strong, they're a huge empire, and they're going around destroying everything. He knows what's next. They're going to come down to the south to destroy the southern kingdom. So he says, I'm going to prepare before you come to me. I'm going to prepare. And what does he do? He builds different dams and he blocks the water so they don't get it. And eventually, in order to make sure that they really don't fight with him, he begins to pay them taxes. So he pays taxes to the Assyrian kingdom, ensuring that the southern kingdom is safe. God also sees that Hezekiah is a good king. He's trying to follow in the footsteps of Moses. So he sees it, he hears his cry, and then he secures the city. And this is kind of where we left off. So Hezekiah is a smart king. He's a good king who is able to understand and learn from the weakness of the north. So like I said, he saved the city and all was well. But kings don't last forever, and it's only proper that, a new one is reinstituted after Hezekiah dies. And the new king that's put in is Manasseh. Manasseh, this guy is not the smartest in the bunch, okay? He's also a king at the time after the northern kingdom is already destroyed. So when Manasseh is in power, he's like not interested about what just happened in the north. He's completely ignorant to the fact that the north was just destroyed because of their sins against God. He's ignorant of the fact that the north was just destroyed for the fact that they're worshiping idol worship. So what does Manasseh do? He begins to reinstitute idol worship. Here's Hezekiah. He's in a time where he's seeing the north kingdom being destroyed because of idol worship. And he looks around and he said, guys, we need to go back to God. We need to fix our ways. We need to be good with God. And he closes down idol worship. He opens up the place of worship for God. And he gets the nation to worship God. Hezekiah dies. Here's Manasseh. Manasseh comes, he's like, let's go back to sin. Let's go back to idol worship. There's a good lesson to learn from Manasseh. Because as we will see, going back to sin is destruction. And some people don't know this, but once you go back to sin, you may not come back out of it as you did the first time. Each time you keep going back to sin, the harder it is to come out of it. See, sin works very much like cancer. There's some medical people in the room, so I want to be careful with what I say. But the way that cancer works, so I've been told, is like your body has like a natural way to multiply cells, correct? That's medical people, right? But your body also has a way of getting rid of the old cells when new cells come. Like there's cells, they're multiplying, and the old ones get rid of somehow, somewhere, I don't know how. Ask the medical people. And the new ones come and play. Now cancer is when your system goes berserk. And instead of the old ones dying, they stay in place and new ones just keep coming. And the old ones never fade away. That builds a mass, hence a tumor, and suddenly you have cancer. And that cancer essentially ends up killing you. This is the same way that our spiritual life works. In our spiritual life, we come to God. And the goal of spiritual life is to move forward towards God. But as we are moving forward, we must get rid of the old things. Like our old life has to go away. The old is gone. The new has come. I have to get rid of the old ones. Cancer or sin results when I want to move forward, but I'm not willing to let go of the old. Cancer or sin comes when I want to keep on going towards God, but I'm not willing to let go of my old life. I want to keep on and hold on to that as long as possible. That creates a mass. It creates sin. And that sin can destroy you. If you really want to be healed, you got to be willing to let go of the past. That old life. Forget about sin, even in our spiritual life. Even in our spiritual life. What you do today is not acceptable for what you're going to do tomorrow. We've talked about this before. Like when you first come to the church, maybe you're praying once a week. That's good. But tomorrow, that becomes old. And that once a week needs to go to twice a week. And then 3 times a week. And then every single day. And then morning and evening. Why? Because we have to keep on moving forward in our spiritual life. This is a huge misconception when it comes to spiritual life. A lot of people think, when we come to the church, we move forward and we hit a certain point, and people are like, I'm kind of good where I am spiritually. I'm good. This is okay for me. But here's the problem. When it comes to spiritual life, if you're not moving forward, you're falling back. It's like a race. Remember, like St. Paul says, I'm headed towards the kingdom of heaven. It's a race. And then when you finish, you're going to win your prize. Like the what is it? The crown, thank you. Sometimes back and forth. So the crown, like you're going to receive it when you go into the, there's a reward when you win the race that you're running. Now, in any race, if you're in first place and you're running and you stop, you're not going backward, but you stop. Are you falling behind or are you going forward? You're going backwards. Even though you stop, you're not physically walking backwards, but simply because you've stopped, you're losing the race. in your spiritual life, unless you're moving forward and you're fighting with yourself and pushing yourself forward, praying further, reading more, coming to the church more often, unless you're doing that more, simply by remaining where you are spiritually, you're falling behind. And the old life is starting to add up. And that's what's going to create that cancer, the sin, which will eventually get you to be killed. Now, in terms of cancer, those people who have this end up doing chemotherapy. Now, chemotherapy is the process of where they get that like mass that builds up that doesn't belong there, and they try to remove it, right? They try to kill those cells because the old ones got to go, right? But if they're successful, they could remove all the cells, and then the doctors do a checkup, and they get into a state known as remission, right? Like they say, we're in remission. What that means is they don't tell them they're cured. They tell them they can't detect the cancer cells anymore, right? So it's like when they do the checkup, those tumors and those masses, they can't detect it, but it doesn't mean it's gone. And this is the time, more than ever, for those people who just are in remission, who got the tumor removed or whatever, this is the time for them to be the most vigilant. And they have to watch out if these cancer cells are going to come back. Because if they come back more aggressive. They come back in a way where they're ready to really attack even faster than they did before. The problem is, a lot of people, it's exhausting. I'm sure you could imagine. Like those people who have cancer, they have to go to the doctor all the time. They have to take medication that gets them sick. They're tired, they're exhausted. And the minute they hear those tumors cannot be detected, they start to relax. And if they stop continuously going to the doctor, if they stop continuously going to the checkup, those cancer cells could come back. Same thing is true in our spiritual life. Once we have this tumor of sin that builds up because we're not ready to give up our old life, we must go to spiritual chemotherapy. That therapy is what you're doing right now. That therapy is when you read your Bible. That therapy is when you pray. That therapy is when you fast. And these sessions that you're doing right now is going to help you get rid of this sin that is building up in your spiritual life. We've been doing these classes for a while. I have no doubt. Those of you who've been coming here, your old life is starting to disappear and you're beginning to have a new life. Yes or no? If we're not changing, why do we come? If our old ways is not changing, why are we here? I'm sure the more that we come to the church, the more that we pray, the more that we go and read our Bible, our old ways of thinking, that old life that we had is going to start disappearing, and we're going to start grabbing onto the new life. Yes or no? Yes. But this is the time to be vigilant more than ever. Because those traces of sin may not be detectable, but they're still there. This is not the time to relax on your spiritual life. You know what? I haven't sinned in a while, so I could not pray today. You know what? I haven't done anything wrong in a while, so I don't need to go to confession anymore. No. This is the time to be the most vigilant. This is the time to make sure that the sin never comes back again. And the way that we ensure by doing that is going to confession. When we confess, those sins that have been building up inside of us is gone once and for all, in a way that it can't come back. And we seal that with the blood and flesh of our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ. Once we are able to confess, and once we are in communion with Christ, we know that God is with us. Does this mean that we're not going to fall into sin? Yes, we're going to fall into sin. But it's a different type of sin that we've done in the past. Even Abuna Shunuda talks about sin in his book of The Life of Repentance. He tells us don't fall into the same sin twice. You fall into sin all the time, but the same sin, the same thing that you've been doing, after you confess, after you take Holy Communion, you have to ensure that you don't do that. And the purpose of Holy Communion, the purpose of confession, is to make sure that these sins don't take over our life. Once upon a time, there was a young boy, probably down in the south, I don't know. But he went with his sister to visit his grandma. Now his grandma has like this huge land. She has a farm. She has all different type of animals running around. And from all the animals, the one that she kind of really likes, oddly, is this duck. It's like weird. She's a weird like lady. She didn't have any friends. So the kid is like, and then the kid was interested because he's a city kid. And he's like, why do you have a duck? Like, who does that, you know? So he would chase the duck around. He's a troublemaker. And he would do things. The grandma would always tell him, hey, don't you touch that duck. Like, leave the duck alone. That's my duck. Don't mess with my duck now. Don't mess with it. But the boy never listened. And he would chase the duck around. He would do things to the duck. And one day he was out there playing around. He sees the duck. And he decides to throw things at it. See what would happen. He picks up a rock, he throws it, and then the rock surely lands on the head of the duck and kills him instantaneously. I know, it's bad. It's horrible. What, you thought the duck was going to live? No. So then the boy takes the duck. He's scared. Oh my goodness, grandma's going to kill me. He takes the duck. It's a huge field. He goes into a corner. He digs a little, like, you know, a tunnel or whatever, and he puts the duck in there. He buries the duck, and he's like, okay, all right, I'm done. And right when he does that, he notices his sister right over his shoulder. Ooh, I'm telling. He's like, no, please, grandma's gonna kill me. Please don't do it. I'm telling. I'll do anything. Okay, all right. So they go back to the house. They start to eat dinner, and then grandma says to the sister, okay, well, yesterday, your brother is the one who did the dishes, and today, you're going to do the dishes. And she goes, well, I have good news, Grandma. My brother just volunteered to do the dishes.
Wow, that's pretty
My brother, not my brother. This didn't happen to me. I didn't kill no duck. Her brother says, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? I didn't. Why would I volunteer to do the dishes? Like, that doesn't make sense. And she says, yes, you did. Remember? And then he remembered. And he says, oh yeah. I'll wash the dishes. The next day goes by. Next day, the sister goes up to the grandma and says, hey, Grandma, can we watch a movie together? Grandma says, I can't because I have a lot of stuff to do around the house. I got to clean the house. I got to do this. I got to do that. And she says, well, I have good news. My brother has just volunteered to clean the whole house. And he says, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? And she says, yes, you did. Remember? So the grandma and the sister sit down and start watching TV while the brother is stuck cleaning up the whole house. This continues day after day, week after week, month after month. She has them doing the chores, cleaning up every day, doing all these things. And finally, the brother was about to lose it. He says, you know what? It doesn't even matter at this point. I'm going to go to my grandma and I'm going to confess what I did. I'm going to tell her exactly what I did. He goes to the grandma and he says, hey, Grandma, I did a little something. Something. I threw the rock and accidentally, this is how my nephew always confesses. Accidentally, the rock fell. That's how my nephew always. I accidentally ate the ice cream, even though you told me not to. So he's like, you know what? Like I did, and he begins to cry. And the grandma smiles. She gets on her knee and she hugs. She kisses her. She's like, I know you did that. Because the funny thing is, I was by the door and I saw you out the window killing the duck. I saw it day after. More importantly, I heard that your sister was gonna hold this over your head for as long as she could. The only reason why I didn't say anything is I was wondering how long you were willing to let her make a slave of you. We sin all the time. We fall all the time. We kill our spiritual life all the time. The devil is there to remind us, remember what you did? Remember what you did? How could you do this? Whereas God, the church, is here to hug us and make us forget, so that it's no longer even in our memory. The devil is there to make sure that once you fall, you remain fallen. To remind you how bad of a person you are. Confession, the church, God is there to wipe away our tears and make sure that we're comforted in his arms. He's not there to judge us. We've got to be able to come back to the church regardless of what we have done. Confess our sins and be purified with God. This is the purpose of confession. Now, in terms of the southern king, Manasseh doesn't seem to get any of this because he's going and regressing further and further into sin. God is looking at the nation of Israel, and he's not happy. He's not happy. He sent them a warning. Through the northern kingdom, Assyrian empire came and destroyed the northern kingdom. The south is left alone. That was supposed to be like a watch out. Like, here's a signal. I'm warning you. I'm warning you. Be careful. But the south doesn't seem to get it. So God is now forced to act against the southern kingdom. After Manasseh, a few other kings come. Some are good. Most of them are bad. But things are not going right. In the meantime, while new kings are being instituted in the southern kingdom, Assyrian empire is starting to fall apart. Just like any other great empire, they're not that great. They have internal conflicts. There are many local level civil wars. Assyrian empire starts to break away. And then there's a new empire called the Babylonian Empire that comes and completely takes over the Assyrian Empire. This is when Joachim is now instituted as the king of the southern kingdom. Joachim comes in as the new king of the southern kingdom. Now Hezekiah, the king before him, the way that he was able to fight off the Assyrian government is by paying taxes. He paid them taxes. Now that the Babylonian Empire came and took over Assyrians, guess what the southern kingdom had to do? They had to continue to pay taxes. The Babylonians are like, oh, whoa, that was great. Now we can continue to have income through the southern kingdom because the Assyrians did that before, they should pay us now. Joachim noticed this, and he continued to pay taxes, but he was very emotional. He was an emotional king. He was kind of good, but he was very emotional. He just acted based on what he felt on that day. You know, some people that do that? Whatever the day, there's some people when they start saying something bad, oh, okay, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, right? Why? Because their emotions change all of their actions change based on what they feel. That was Joachim. This king with a problem. Now, the Babylonian Empire, they wanted to flex their muscles. So they're going around everywhere, destroying all the city around them, and then they go to Egypt. And then they try to conquer Egypt. But guess what? They're not successful. This is a problem. Because the rest of the nations are looking at Babylon like they're not that strong. Like they can't defeat Egypt. Then why are we paying them taxes? Because if they can't defeat Egypt, we can probably defeat them too. And guess what he starts to do? He stops paying taxes. He acts not as a wise king who's able to foretell the future, but he begins to act based on his emotions. Emotions can be very dangerous. Emotions could be, especially the emotion of anger. When we are angry, the things that we do, the things that we say, sometimes could be irreversible. There was one kid who like, who had a hard time managing his anger. Very angry kid. It's not me, I swear. It's another guy. Another guy. And he had like a problem. And he would say things, do things like he was out of control. And his dad thought he needed to teach him a lesson. And one day he said, you know what? Because the boy wanted to change, but he was one of those kids like, I don't know what to do. I have an anger problem. I don't know what to do. And his dad said, I'll tell you what. Each time you get angry, I want you to go to this fence. And he shows him a fence. And then he says, I want you to take this nail and like put a nail in the fence. Just one nail every time that you're angry. He's like, oh, that's going to be a lot of nails. He's like, don't worry about it. And he goes the first day and something happens. He's like, I can't believe it. And he's like, oh, all right. Nail, bang. And then a few minutes later, he gets in a fight with him. Dad, I hate you. Nail. And he's like, by the end of the day, there are like 25 nails in the fence. That's pretty bad. He's an angry child. So it's not me, I swear. The next day, he's like, okay, I really got to control my anger. Like 25 nails. We're about to run out of nails. Like maybe even fences. You know what I mean? So like, he's like, I gotta make 5, 2, 1. And then one day goes by without him getting angry at all. No nails equals not a single damn anger. Goes to his dad, Pop, guess what? I've been doing what you told me to do. Today, I didn't even put anything in the fence. I can't believe you're still standing up. But like, I didn't put any nails in it. I didn't get angry. I think I'm controlling my anger. The dad says, very good. But now, each day that goes by without you getting angry, I want you to go back and take out one nail. It's gonna take forever because I don't know how long this trick is gonna last. They're like, trust me. Whatever, like a full day that goes by without you getting angry, just take one nail out. And he's like, I'll try. And then each day went by. Took out a nail, took out a nail. And eventually he took out all the nails from the fences. Went back to his dad and said, Dad, I took out all the nails. I did it. Like, I think I managed my anger. And his dad says, let's take a walk. He looks at the fence and he says, what do you see? I see a fence. Like, no. Like, no. Look. He's like, well, there are holes in the fence. He's like, exactly. You took the nails out, but the holes will remain there forever. When it comes to anger, we start to say things to people. Remember, we're dealing with people, not God. And we could say things that will remain with them forever. When we are angry, it's like we're shooting nails at the person that we're speaking with. Think about some of the most hateful things that we've ever said. Most of the time, the most hateful things that we say are to the people that are the closest to us. Sometimes we don't even talk to our enemies that way. But the people that we care about the most, nail after nail after nail and after nail. And the thing is, you can always say, I'm sorry. You can ask for forgiveness. But it's like taking that nail out. Sometimes that hurt is permanent. People don't forget. You're not dealing with God. God is the only one who says, no, it's okay, my child, it's fine. But human beings will remember. Think about how you speak to your mom. Mom, you're so annoying. Dad, I can't stand you. Oh, like, what are you doing? Married couples. How do you talk to each other? Married couples. When you are angry and in the midst of your anger, how do you respond to each other? Those words that you throw at each other could remain with each other forever. You could ask for forgiveness. And the other person is, okay, I forgive you, but they will remember forever. The ones that you love, if you're angry, just walk away. Like, hold your tongue. That's what James tells us to do. In the book of James chapter 3, verse 7 through 9, it says, people can tame all kinds of animals. Even we see lions at a zoo, right? Like, they're able to tame the most powerful, like, animals. Birds, reptiles, and fish. But no one can tame the tongue. It is restless and evil, full of deadly poison. Sometimes it praises our Lord and Father, and sometimes it curses those who have been made in the image of God. the tongue and the words that we say. It can destroy the people around you. For you, maybe you're just angry, but you don't know how long that pain will last in that person's heart and how long, how it can affect them. Before you speak through anger, take a second to breathe and think about it. In the terms of the southern kingdom, this king, Joachim, doesn't seem to understand that his actions that he made through emotions has outcomes. And the outcome is the Babylonian king, when he hears that they're not paying taxes, guess what he does? Guess what he does? Like, what do you think is going to happen? Well, they're not paying taxes. So he comes and he destroys the city. He destroys the city. Keep in mind, we're talking about the nation of Israel. We're talking about like the Israel. The northern kingdom is completely destroyed. The northern kingdom is like overtaken. There's no more north. The only thing we have surviving between salvation of mankind and us is the southern kingdom. That's it. That's the only thing stopping us. And even now, the southern kingdom is in danger because the Babylonian Empire comes and they say, we're going to teach you a lesson. And then they begin to destroy the city. Almost 90% of the city is destroyed. This is a very sad period for the southern kingdom. Most of their people are taken as captives. Most of their cities are in plunder. They're completely destroyed. I mean, this is a bad situation. This is a bad situation. Again, this is all in context of the southern kingdom worshiping idols. All they have to do is like correct their ways, turn back to God, and God would save them. But that's not what happens. They keep on sinning after sin, after sin, after sin. The king of Babylon, Nabucodonosor, after getting rid of this king, Joachim, who's not paying the taxes, reinstitutes a new king, Zedekiah. I think is how it's pronounced. Zedekiah. That sounds about right. That's what I'm going to say. Zedekiah. You know what I'm talking about. So now they have a new king in the south. The Babylon Empire shows how strong they could be. They've destroyed a majority of the southern kingdom. The majority of the southern kingdom is destroyed as Zedekiah is in power. But Zedekiah is also not the smartest out of the bunch. He doesn't seem to understand this pattern that's following around. And he begins to think to himself, like, I'm paying all these taxes to the Babylon Empire. What happens if I stop paying them? Like, he's not getting it. Like, he's not understanding. The book of Jeremiah is dedicated to this guy called Zedekiah, right? So Jeremiah is like, bro, like, come on, man. Like, please, you're going to destroy the city. Like, the whole city will be destroyed. There's like 10% of the city is only remaining. Keep in mind, in 597 BCE, is when the Babylon Empire came to destroy the first, it's called the siege of the Israel kingdom. It's like they destroyed 90% of it. And Jeremiah is like, chill, man. Like, relax. Just pay the taxes. Let's save the city. Let's do what we got to do. We're in survival mode. But Zedekiah doesn't listen. He's ignorant. He's ignorant. Instead, what does he decide to do? He decides to stop paying taxes. What do you think is going to happen to the Babylon Empire? Apparently, he couldn't see this. The Babylon Empire, being led by Nabucodonosor, come into the southern kingdom. They not only destroyed the remaining part of the city, but they destroyed the temple of God. That temple that Solomon had built, the temple which was so big, the temple which was, which even the Ethiopian queen had heard about. This huge temple that they've been worshiping over and over and over again is destroyed. This is the saddest part in Israel history. In terms of the north, we've seen that the north is already destroyed, But at least we had the real Jews, right? Like the tribe of Judah was still spared. There was hope. Like everybody was thinking about Jerusalem. Like we're talking about Jerusalem where everybody went to worship. But even the entire city, and more importantly, their place of worship, the only place where they could go and call the name of God, is completely destroyed. This is the period where people like Jeremiah begin to write their lamentations. Obviously, lamentation is like a sad cry. And if you read Lamentations chapter 1, verse 1, it says, Jerusalem, once so full of people, is now deserted. She was once again great among the nations, now sits alone like a widow. Once the queen of all the earth, she is now a slave. So Lamentations is again dedicated to this siege that's taking place right in front of his eyes. Now, in terms of Jeremiah, he's a special character because he is witnessing the siege taking place. And Lamentations is him, like he's a poet. So through poetry, he begins to write about the things he's actually witnessing. He's like, I can't believe this is happening. And he writes. He gets to chapter 5. And suddenly, things are coming his way. It's not like he's just watching from the outside. It's like now he's about to be attacked, right? So he stops abruptly the Lamentations. This is how it concludes. It says, or have you utterly rejected this? Are you angry with us still? And then he kind of cuts off. Like, what happened? Is he or is he not? Like, you know what I mean? Like what happened? But what happens is, because he has to flee, he stops writing the book of Lamentations. He settles down after the siege, after everything is stopped, and he continues to write an epistle of Jeremiah. And unlike other books within the Bible, the epistle of Jeremiah begins at chapter 6. We call it Terafe Ermias. And as you can see, it says the following. A copy of an epistle which Jeremy sent unto them, which were to be led captives into Babylon by the king of the Babylonians, to certify them as it was commanded him of God. And again, this is the opening phrase of the epistle of Jeremiah. It says, because of the sins which ye have committed before God, ye shall be led away captives into Babylon by the Nabuchodonosor, king of the Babylonians. So he continues from chapter 6, talking about now that the siege is full-blown, now that they're taken captives, he begins to write to the nation of Israel of what is to come. Most of them are prophesying that something, like it's not completely over. If you read Isaiah, the book of Isaiah, the first couple of chapters is about, hey guys, we're about to be destroyed. We got to get our stuff together. This is serious. In the middle, it's like we're being besieged, like it's taking place. At the end, it's like, okay, we were taken captives, but I feel like God is not going to forget us, right? When you get into the book of Daniel is when he's part of the people who were taken captive into Babylon. He's like one of the slaves. So if you read the book of Daniel, it's him saying, yeah, we are slaves, but I feel like God is going to come and rescue us. So the people didn't lose hope. They didn't lose hope. And they know that something, somewhere, God is going to come and rescue them somehow. Sure enough, like if you read 2 Kings chapter 25, it's probably one of the saddest chapters in the entire Bible. This is when we see that the temple of God is destroyed. This is when we read, like it's total chaos. Like people are being killed left and right. Women are being taken captives. Like the city is left in plunder. This is one of the saddest chapters that we read 2 Kings. Because like if you think about it in like a movie, so it's leading up, like for First Kings and Solomon and all that, that's the beginning of the movie. Everybody's good. The conflict, Israel and God, they don't seem to communicate effectively because Israel is not listening to what God is saying. This is the problem. As a result, the city is about to be destroyed. The climax is in chapter 25. That's when everything comes together, like a movie, right? And it ends with the whole city being destroyed. Like the whole city. It's not a good movie, I understand. But like the whole city is destroyed. But something bizarre happens in the last 2-3 chapters. Because you're reading this like, oh no, it's right. Oh my God, the whole city is destroyed. All this. And then suddenly, you get into the last 2-3 chapters, something different happens. It says, in the 37th year of the exile of King Joachim of Judah, King Evil Mordecai of Babylon, these names, I swear, released King Joachim of Judah from prison. And this is the most important part. He spoke kindly to him and gave him a seat above the other seats of the kings who were with him in Babylon. Like, again, think about it in context. The entire chapter of 25, you were talking about the cities destroyed, and the kings are being taken captives, and the children is being taken captives, and that this is the end of Israel and all this. And the last 2-3 chapters, it says, oh yeah, and the king of the southern kingdom is released, and he gets like a high place of honor, and then he gets to eat with the king. So if you're reading this, you should be left confused. Like, not knowing what's going to happen. Like, so are they destroyed? Are they not? Like, it's a cliffhanger. That's exactly what it is. It's supposed to get your mind twisting. Like, if you're reading it for the first time, of course you know how the story is going to end. But if you're reading it for the first time, you should be shocked. Because this is the cliffhanger telling you the city is destroyed, but the king is released. Huh? So what happens next? We find out in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. In the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. Surely enough, our suspicions are true because they do seem to have a comeback. Now, in terms of the Babylons, the Babylonian Empire is destroyed by this king called Cyrus the Great. He's a Persian king. So the Persians come and they take over Babylon. This is great news for the Israelites. Why? Because Cyrus the Great is chilling one day. He's like, oh yeah, I'm chilling. Oh yeah, I'm chilling. Everything is good. And he's like, you know what? Why don't you guys go back to Israel and rebuild your temple? And then people are like, what? Like, are you serious? He's like, yeah, go back and rebuild your temple. They just built it. In fact, here's some resources. Here's all the things that you need. Like, why are you slaves? I didn't do that. The Babylonians did that. So why don't you go back and rebuild your temples? It says he was inspired by God to help them do this. And surely enough, they start to return slow by slow back into Israel. The first person that's leading the wave of Israel to go back to the nation to rebuild the city is a man by the name of Zerubbabel. Zerubbabel is a guy who's chosen by God to go back to the city and start to rebuild the city. I'm almost done. I see people are kind of tired today. It is hot. Sometimes the weather does that to you. But we're almost done. Try to hang with me. So the people, he leads the people back to Jerusalem. And again, like, his whole vision is we've got to be that great city, that great Israel once again. We got to go back into the worship of God. We got to go back into the way that Moses and Solomon were. And because now they have a new beginning, a new slate, they have to rebuild the city from scratch. So they go to Jerusalem, they get all their resources together, and then they lay down the foundation for the temple of God. This is truly a historic period. Think about it again in context. Here's Israel. They just lost the temple. But after like a bizarre twist and events and all these things that happened, they're able to go back to their country and establish and put in place the foundation for the temple of God. But something interesting occurs. In Ezra chapter 3, verse 11 through 13. So when the foundation is laid, people start to cry. You could imagine, right? Like, people are happy, they're ecstatic, they can't believe. Like, they thought they had lost the temple of God forever, but now they're rebuilding it, they're watching this, they're so happy, they're ecstatic. But something happens. It says, the others, however, were shouting for joy. They joyful, page 4, sorry. But many of the elder priests, Levites, and other leaders who had seen their first temple wept out loud when they saw the new temple's foundation. The others, however, were shouting for joy. The joyful shouting and weeping mingled together in a loud noise that could be heard far in the distance. This is what's happening. The young ones who were born in captivity, who've only heard about the story of Israelites, are ecstatic at the fact that they have a temple that they could go back to worship. They're ecstatic. They're like, this is amazing. The older guys who were in place when the first temple was around during the time of Solomon are comparing the old temple with the new one. And they notice the new one is nothing like Solomon's temple. It's a lot smaller, a lot worse, a lot weaker. And they're weeping and they're crying because they can't believe, yeah, they made a new temple, but it's not like the one from before. Yeah, God has rescued them, but their history is just not going to be the same anymore. And here's the thing. When it comes to our spiritual life, a lot of the times, being young, your mind begins to work. And when it comes to sin, we could be very creative. Yes or no? Why are you laughing? We can be really, really creative. So creative to the point that we begin to think, if I just sin today, I could confess Wednesday. And God will just, forgive me. That's what Christianity is about. I can always confess. You never thought about that? You know what? I'm young. I'm young. Not me.
Oh, no.
I just want to live my life, in a good way, right now. Just right now. And there'll be a time where I confess, I'll go back to God. And I'll be forgiven. We've never said that. We never thought like that. It never crossed our mind. Huh? We do it all the time. We do it all the time. I remember, I tell this story all the time, and I'm going to keep telling it because I think it's an important story. Real true story that happened. In my earlier days, fresh out of college, I had a lot of passion back then. I would preach, go to church, guys, pray! And then, so you were laughing because he remembers. And then I would always tell them about my life experience in college. And as you guys know, I tell everything, right? I tell you guys the things that I've done, all the events that I have been to, all the gatherings, all the gatherings that I've been to. And I remember one time I was talking about it and all this, and no, it was the devil on my heart and all that. And then somebody in the back, and I still remember this, she raised her hand, she was like, well, that's not fair. And I was like, what's not fair? She was like, you got to go out and have fun and all this, and you're telling us not to do the same? You came back to the church, so how come we can't go out and have fun, and then we can always come back to the church when you're as old as you are?
That's a good idea.
But in there shows the real problem of our attitude about spirituality. If you're thinking that sin is something you get to do, and spirituality is something that you have to do, you've missed the whole point. You missed the point. You have to restructure your life to really see Christianity in a beautiful way. Sin is not something you get to do. Sin is not something Christianity is not something that prevents us from doing sin. Christianity is life. It's life. Sin is death. We're picking death over life. It's not something let me die just a little bit so I can come back. All right, you know what I mean? When you confess, understand this. God will forgive you 100%. But first of all, if you're confessing under the premise, I will confess in the future, that's not true confession to begin with. But more importantly, there is a possibility that you might be lost and never come back again. The reason why I tell this story over and over again, and those of you who've been here for a while might have heard this, is because that person who asked this question has never came back. This was years ago, about 10 years ago, right? In her world, she was about to go to college, and just for 2 years, she was going to try it out, and have fun and come back to the church, but she was lost. Keep in mind, the devil is like, he will attract you like a magnet and keep pulling you in further and further and further in. And there's a possibility of getting lost in that sin. Sin is not something that you want to like play around or flirt around with. Like, stay away from it. It's not something like, let me just try it out. There's so many people, and I can never understand this. People say, I just want to try this out once. Why would you want to try death? Like, what benefit is there in doing that? We are in a relationship with God. Why would we like mess that up just because we're curious of dying? If somebody's telling you about cancer, we were talking about cancer earlier, I say, you know what, I want to try it. I want to try it. Would we ever say that? We know. I don't need to be told. I know what it does. I've seen people who are sick, right? We've all seen people. We know what cancer does. Why would we want to try something so evil that is so destructive to our spiritual life? Those of you, especially the young ones who are around and saying, I just want to try it once. I just want to see what it feels like. I just want to experience it once and I'll never do it again. Be careful. You're gambling with your spiritual life. Yes, God will forgive you. But there's a chance that you may not even come back. And there are certain things that can happen, like we were talking about the fence, that are irreversible. Certain decisions that you make to your life right now have lifetime consequences. So before you think about experimenting with anything, with any type of sin, think about it. Is it worth your spiritual life? Because as we see from the nation of Israel, it's sure not worth them losing the temple of God. So that's all I got for today. Questions? I'll do my best. Yes, ma'am.
So is the paper or whatever, is it for 2 weeks?
Something like that. You get more notice. Just get ready. It's not. She wants to quit that. She was asking for it. Other questions? No questions?